Welcome to another tutorial. This is an Illustrator one which takes you through typography. I know I touched a little bit on basic type features, but we're going to go into a little bit more depth, and then you're going to produce a little typographic sort of artwork, I guess, that's going to be uploaded to your blog to show your understanding and your skills. So you need to have Illustrator open. File new print document will do, and what we're going to do is, you should have read through and we've discussed about typography, and you're going to do a little illustration or a type experiment that shows that you understand what all these things are. So uppercase, lowercase, headers versus body copy, serif versus sans serif, leading, kerning, tracking, point size, justification, indents, hyphens, font weight, orphans and widows. So there's quite a bit there to do, so we're going to go through those. Now what we need to do is, firstly, we might, I guess, start with the letter I, bring up something like Times New Roman, bring our size nice and big and zoom ourselves in there. Now this is one of the first things that we need to show, and that is what we call the difference between serif and sans serif. Serif means tail, so on all kinds of different fonts, they usually, now there's all new sort of fonts out these days, but they're usually classified as serif or sans serif. So serif means it has tails, sans serif means it's without tails. So if I copied this and put this here and double clicked and just did something like myriad, you can see there that this doesn't have any of the little tails and the little edges on it, and so that's what we call a sans serif font, and a serif font is one that has the tails on it. So that's the main two classifications, but knowing that there's a whole bunch of sort of new styles that don't fit too well into serif or sans serif. Then what we're going to do is start to illustrate some of the other features. So we can go in and use perhaps a symbol, might be if we go into our symbol library, these are symbols, so little pictures that you can draw. You can go down, open symbol library, and we're just going to bring up our arrows one. So there's just some basic arrows, as you can see there. We're just going to choose one and drop our arrow in like so. That one's a little big, maybe we'll go with this one. Drop him in, delete him, because remember, we need to, in this little type experiment, we need to identify everything that we're doing. So I'm going to make him a little bit thinner and move him around. And so what we're going to do is create a little type experiment. Move him around. And so what we're going to point to down here is our little tails, and so we're just going to write that in, and we're just going to write something like serif equals tails, and so you can see there that we've got our serif, and you can show me that you understand what serif is and tails. The next thing we're going to do is perhaps write I understand. Whoops. We're going to make him nice and big. Change our font to something that I like, so you can see that that's a font there, and we're going to start sort of demonstrating all the things that we understand. Now hopefully you know about uppercase and lowercase. Uppercase is just when you have your caps lock on, so you can do that, or hold shift and that's a capital letter there. We can always just make this as well capital, so we know what lowercase and uppercase is. We can then grab this over here. I might leave him over here actually. we're going to grab our little arrow, Control C, Control V. We're going to have lots of these little fellas kicking around. And so then on this one we can copy, paste, we can show that we know what this is, and we can write uppercase. And then copy and paste that again, and go back down over here, change that to lowercase. And as you can see, I'm just starting to demonstrate I understand all the different elements of my type. So this guy's lowercase in here. We've got lowercase, we've got uppercase, we know what serif is. We also know what sans serif is, so we're just going to choose a font. You may have to find one. Arial is one, and you can see there that we've got ourselves a font that is what we call sans serif without the tail, so we can copy that, bring him up here. Sans serif, well, make our little text box bigger, equals without tails. So you can start to see that we're just identifying everything within writing I understand type. So we can see that we actually do understand type because we know what everything is. So you need to show me uppercase, lowercase, serif and sans serif. As well as that, you need to demonstrate some of these things. So we've got uppercase and lowercase, header versus body copy. We'll get to that shortly. We've got our leading and we've got our tracking. So remember, our tracking is our letters. I think I've discussed this before, the space between our letters. So what we're going to do is over here we've got two main ones, our character and our paragraph that we look at. When we go over here, the tracking, which is this one here, is when we have our letters sort of close together or spread out. So for the D, we might put him, for the D to space him out, move him right out far, and this shows me tracking, that we understand that that's the spacing in between our letters. So we're going to copy and paste him, turn him around, and show that we understand tracking. Now, difference between, I guess, header and body copy is usually what you find in magazines, the body, the details of an article or of a brochure or a pamphlet. The header or the master is, the big heading, which has usually got a fairly unique font that might be easy to read a couple of words, but you don't want to read a whole essay written in those fonts. So this is like sort of, I guess, what we'd call a master header. But body copy is usually quite small, and so for that we'll put a little bit of body copy in. Now as you can see, it's still got that wide tracking on it, so we'll just set that back. Type like so, and I'm just going to quickly, so that there is, even though it's the one word repeated, that's kind of like body copy. The idea is that it's just what you normally read, so it usually needs to be, you don't play with the tracking as much and the leading and the spacing and all the different fonts. You don't make it look all fancy because you just want it to sort of, just look, I guess, as normal as possible, to make it as easy to read as possible as well. So yeah, that's that. We could chuck another sort of funky font that you might have in there if you want to do something sort of different at all. Pop a different little letter in there. You can go through and learn a little bit about some of the different fonts you've got. Obviously remember some of the good ones that I enjoy using, but we see I understand type. We've got different things. This letter here, we might just pop a little arrow next to and type this in as our header, because you could imagine if you had a whole sort of couple sentences written in that font, which you can see there, which is quite unique. That's just the letter U to start it off. It would be very hard to read. So header fonts can be quite unique and creative, whereas normal body copy needs to look something like that. So I'll bring this guy down here. And so you need to show me that you understand what body text is, or body copy. And we're starting to move through them. So we've done uppercase, lowercase. There we've got headers versus body copy, serif versus sans serif. We've done our kerning and our tracking. We haven't done our leading yet. And I guess point size is just the height of a letter, so you can just type in what they are. So over here, if we double click on our letter R, so we highlight that, I can see it's 48. So I would then just copy and paste him, bring him across, and just write that here's a 48 point body copy. 48 point type. And so you guys need to just choose a letter, find out what height it is in terms of points, and pop it on. We've got our hyphen, which is that guy there on the end. So a hyphen is when it sort of carries over. Hyphen, which is a little dash when a word doesn't fit. What else have we got? We've got our leading. Our leading is our spacing again, but not between each individual letter, but between our paragraph rows. So you'll watch here, I've explained this, that if we put it on auto, that's what it sort of comes out usually, but we can space it out. I can do massive spacing, which you can see there. I can do really close spacing, and it sort of brings itself up on top of itself. So let's space maybe a couple of these back out, and then you'll be able to see how it kind of gets closer and further away as well. So we'll probably pop another little arrow over there to show that we understand what's going on. You guys need to show some leading. What else do we have here? So we've done point size, done all those things. Font weight as well, so we can find ourselves a letter. We're sort of running out of room here. I guess we can just use one of these words up the top. Font weight, we know there's bold and we know there's italics. So we can do that. Grab ourselves another little arrow. Font weight. We might just write italics and bold. They're the sort of main ones that you get. There's our font weight in italics and bold. We've got our leading. Okay, some of these other little things, the orphans and the widows, is what happens when you get a word left on its own on a paragraph. So when you imagine there's a whole bunch of information, so when we even look at this paragraph up here, if you just had one or two words sort of left at the bottom, kind of like this. I know it's different because these aren't full paragraphs, but this here is what we call a widow or an orphan. It's like when you have one or two words left on a paragraph. So even though we've just created our own one there, we'll pop one in and just identify them. So you want to sort of show that you just know what it is for the future, and it's the idea that you just have one or two words left at the bottom. So we've got our orphan and our widow, and then I think the last thing is just sort of the justification and the indents. And that's to do with your paragraph. So when we go over to this one here, you know this, if you've got something centered, it looks like that. If it's left justified or right justified, so that's just and an indent is when, you know, let's put on the left justification and move it back. An indent is just at the top of a paragraph when you kind of move a letter across. Now it's moving this one across as well, because that's pretending it's a new paragraph, because we sort of pressed enter as we went. But that's how that works. It won't work obviously on this side because it's been right justified, but you can just pop in that you know what justification is. So we'll just finish off with one last one here to show that we know what justification is. So that's where you center it or put it left. So we'll just finish off with that. So that's called right justified type. So you guys are going to make something similar to what I've just done here to show that you understand type, and that's like a little type experiment. And a quick little recap. What they are, a header is when you've got a master font that can be quite unique in terms of typography. It might not be easy to read, but it's only a couple of words you're reading and it stands out. Our body type usually needs to be quite normal. As you can see there, it doesn't look normal because we've changed all the spacing, but that's your normal paragraph. Left, right, centered justification is how it aligns. That's what we call our body text, our body copy. Our font weight refers to if it's italic or bold. Orphan or widows, we've just got to move him now because he's not pointing at the correct thing. And our leading is the spacing between our spacing in here between each sort of row, so our vertical spacing. In between each letter is what we call our tracking, which is shown here, very close letter spacing, spread further out. We've got ourselves lowercase, which you know uppercase is capital letters. Serif means to have the tails, the little curly bits, like some of these fonts here. The bits that don't have the curly bits, like this here, this is what we call sans serif, so we call that because it's without the tails. And then the point size is the type, and the hyphen is when a word doesn't sort of continue on the page and goes down to the next line. So you can see there, I understand type, and I've showed all those different elements. So you need to create your own unique version of that which shows all these things, and then save it and upload it to your blog.